My name is Sheila Patel. I head an organization called SPARK, which provides technical and professional support to a mass movement of slum dwellers in India called the National Slum Dwellers Federation and Mahila Milan. Together we work in about 9 states and 70 large, medium and small towns and have a membership of 750,000 households. We are also part of a global movement of slum dwellers called the Shack Dwellers International, which operates with affiliates like the NSTF in 33 countries in Asia, Africa and Latin America. For people living in informal settlements in India and all over the world, the challenge of sanitation is a deep and serious one. It's something that impacts cities as well as those who don't get the benefit of safe sanitation. For us, in the movement of slum dwellers, sanitation is a governance issue because in urban areas, in cities, it's not only a matter of providing a toilet, but it's important to look at whether that facility has access to drainage, sewage, water supply, and the treatment of fecal matter. We will try and explain our strategy, the process, what we have achieved, and where we are right now, and in the context of the Sustainable Development Goals, what are the challenges we all think we will face, and both the process and the technological options that we have to pursue if we truly want to scale up overall universal sanitation for all.
आम्हाला त्रास आहे पाण्याचा तकलीफ आहे इथे संडास सोय बरोबर राहत नाही
संडास ही नहीं ना जेंट्स के लिए इसलिए समुद्र में सब लोग बायकांसाठी भी राहत बायकांसाठी एकच आहे पण कमीच आहे एकच ना एकच कमीच आहे
या संडासामध्ये तक्रार काय आहे मेन तर त्याचे भांडे फुटलेले आहेत पूर्ण
आणि नाही आम्हाला
आणि पब्लिक भरपूर होती
सकाळची गर्दी जाम राहते दिवसभर गर्दी जाम राहते
मेन तर रस्ता नाही आणि जेंट्सचे पण पूर्ण संडास सुटलेले जायला त्यांना रस्ता म्हणजे आहेच नाही
नगर सेवक हर साल 5 साल की चुनाव चाहते हैं 5 साल से यही सुनते रहते हैं हाँ बनेगा बनेगा बनेगा
Normally any toilet constructed by the corporation not been maintained properly because of the staff and its own problem of finance also.
In this first section, we start off with how communities identified the challenge of sanitation for themselves. We always hear about statistics, percentages, volumes of people who don't have sanitation. And those figures overwhelm us. We don't understand what to do with such large numbers. But for us, the identification of this problem came out of discussing with women what their needs were. And sanitation has been the biggest priority for women and young girls in any country that you would go. It's both a question of hygiene, of dignity, of privacy, a terrible loss of identity, when often men and women have to hide their faces because they defecate in close proximity to each other.
वहाँ ओपन में हम लोग जाते हैं उधर से आदमी देखते हैं इधर कितना शर्म लगता है बैठने को ये हम जानते हैं हमारा दिल तो आप संडास बना देंगे हमको कितना भी पत्थर मारो आदमी लोग जाते हैं.
So when we began to look at the issue of sanitation, we started, as we always do, in communities collecting data about themselves. And what we found is that most informal settlements, which the government did not recognize, that means the government pretended that these don't exist, there was no sanitation. And by and large, that was the majority of the informal settlements in the city. Those that did have some form of sanitation, it was in a state of terrible conditions. Toilets were built There were very few seats. There wasn't adequate water supply. There was no access to disposing the fecal matter. And in a matter of months and sometimes years, it would fall apart and people had to go back to defecating outside.
These old toilet blocks were so dilapidated that they were almost out of use. And that's why we call this program DNR program, Demolition and Reconstruction of Toilet Blocks.
Toilets constructed by the municipal corporations usually become defunct in 2 or 3 years, and then the corporation starts a demolition and reconstruction program, which is extremely wasteful.
So taking this data together, communities first began to think of what was the solution that seemed scalable to them. And that's when the concept of the community toilet came up. The idea was that when your home is small, it doesn't have access to drainage, sewage and water supply, how can you consider a toilet inside your house? The second thing was the cost. Every household realized that the cost of construction went up 25% if you built the toilet inside the house. So space and resource constraints and the sheer density of housing stock in a particular slum made it a more advantageous strategy to build a community toilet and to engage the municipality in working with communities to reconstruct toilets. The municipality that first considered this possibility at scale was Pune. The commissioner had a deep commitment to the issue of sanitation. He acknowledged that the city had money but had never spent it on sanitation. And during his period as commissioner, he wanted all slum dwellers to get a toilet.
The Government of India, the Ministry of Urban Development, launched a universal sanitation campaign where they offered a 50% subsidy for the construction of community sanitation to municipalities or public agencies throughout the country. So which means that this brought money into an area which is traditionally neglected.
We impressed upon the political leaders the need to make larger allocations for toilet program which was so much neglected. So for toilet program on which we used to spend 25, 26, 28 lakhs, last year we spent 28 lakhs, I could get 23 crores.
What we managed to achieve in Pune, we were, as a people's organization, we managed to go to the municipal corporation, which is the local authority, and we are able to convince the commissioner of corporation that the slums in Pune need to have a toilet. We are able to convince the corporation there has to be a people's participation in any community driven process. So we said the community will design the toilet, community also will construct the toilet and its maintenance, either it's an NGO or a community collaboratively maintain the toilet.
So we have taken up a program of constructing 4,000 toilet seats, about 226 toilet blocks with the help of NGO.
But the core money for construction of toilet will come from the Pune Municipal Corporation, and the people have to look after for its complete maintenance and day-to-day maintenance, for which it may collect whatever contribution it could collect from the community people.
But in all instances, this whole first phase, not only in Pune but the subsequent other municipalities that we began to work with on sanitation, it had to be with first breaking down the defunct toilets that were there and then reconstructing toilets and working out a way by which the number of seats could expand although the footprint remained the same. So in some instances there was ground plus 2 and a huge upward expansion so that men, women and children could get toilets.
The sanitation program reached 500,000 citizens, which represented roughly about 80% of all slum dwellers in this city.
The communities began to design the kind of solution they were looking for. And this solution had the following elements. 1. There were separate seats for men, women and children. 2. The toilets had a special room for the caretaker because it was important that there was day and night supervision for cleaning the toilets. And when they gave a room to the caretaker, it was an incentive for that family to live there, because in present situations nobody gets a fully constructed house with access to water and electricity.
For a caretaker's family to get a free room means something very important for that family apart from employment. And by giving that free room, the salary to be paid to the caretaker can be reduced appropriately, which means that the maintenance costs to be borne by the community are that much reduced. With the design features of the toilet, that you have children's toilets. This is not common. In fact, this is not there anywhere. And children can't compete with adults. Children are afraid in these long queues that are there, and children and parents of children are afraid that they will fall into those big pans, if they go into that, if they manage to go into the adult seat.
While all these things were similar, in reality no two toilets look alike. They are different in design, they are different in their numbers, how many men's toilets, women's toilets. Their ventilation system is different colors, tiles of different types, and always with full community participation. The third point was that communities wanted to be involved and associated with maintenance because they felt that they had no control over the municipal staff that came in any way, and they wanted to differentiate the management and maintenance of these toilets from the pay and use toilets that the city provided for transient populations on the street, where you paid ₹1 per use. Families had 5 to 10 people. Spending 10 rupees a day meant a lot of money.
Pay and use toilets have a niche in the market where there are floating and transient populations, like at railway stations, bus stops, marketplaces and so on. But for the slum situation, it is not really appropriate. How do you maintain these toilets? The municipal conservancy staff, the cleaners, etc. simply don't do their job, which is why very soon these things become defunct, and people don't have any sense of ownership in the government products because they are not involved at any stage.
आते ही नहीं सफाई वाले, जहाँ देखो तहाँ गंदगी कोई आता है बाहर से एकदम बांस जैसे ऐसा लगता है जैसे नर्क है.
So the strategy was, could communities form a collective, create representation, identify how much money it would cost to pay the caretaker and supplies for maintenance, and this just divided between people. So the cost reduced considerably, and it brought communities directly to participate in keeping their toilets clean.
16 आदमी 17 आदमी का है, हम लोग सदी से वो सब मिलके करेंगे. और ऐसा हमारा है कि है तुलसी इधर देखभाल करने के लिए एरिया के अंदर है, वो साफ सफाई तो उसको रखेगा.
Based on these ideas, models began to emerge, and in some instances, while negotiating and representing with municipalities about these possibilities, the Alliance got permission to either set up a cloth and wood model or construct a toilet, actual toilet. And as this process emerged and evolved, it not only served to convince communities that this was a good transformative idea, but it also got some support from the municipalities. You're operating in a system where this has never been done. Nobody's capabilities have been tested or built up. So what we're saying is, expand the first phase so it becomes the capacity building. And then it'll exponentially grow. But you must give time in the first phase to build consensus, to build capacities. But the most interesting and innovative aspect of this process was the role that the leadership of the Alliance, Mahila Milan and NSTF, took in not only negotiating with municipalities, but also engaging communities, bringing politicians into the process, bringing technical people into the process to produce this solution together. Initially there was a lot of hesitation. Will this be done? Can poor people build toilets? Can women handle the management of this process? But we got a lot of concessions to explore this possibility in Pune, and as a result, community women were the managers of the contract, and they produced the participation necessary in communities to manage and maintain it.
महिला कैसा निकालते थे, डेमोलेशन कैसा किया, खड्डा कितने थे, कहाँ से कहाँ तक लिया, कितना फुट लिया, वापिस पीसीसी कैसी की, कितनी इंच पीसीसी की, फुटिंग कैसी की, कॉलम कैसे भरे, फिर प्लिंथ लेवल तक बोले तो क्या होता है, ये सब कुछ हमको पहले कुछ भी मालूम नहीं, हम कैसे किया था, ड्राइंग कैसी रहती है वो भी मालूम नहीं था, लेकिन हम लोग जब इधर ध्यान देने लगे तो हम लोगों के समझ में आने लगा कि ये काम ऐसा रहता है.
Women leaders in the federation operate from very vulnerable positions. So this process has to go slowly because it can get messed up very quickly. Ironically, this design was first shown to Mumbai, to the corporation, but it was not accepted. However, after looking at what had happened in Pune, the city of Mumbai agreed to this, and we got our second contract there.
The Pune experiment helped in getting the Bombay experiment off the ground. The councillors from Bombay who were steadfastly opposing the whole community build program funded by the toilet program funded by the World Bank, it was after they visited Pune and went around and talked to the communities, talked to the councillors, saw it on the ground, that they went back to Bombay and signed off on that project.
The Bombay Municipal Corporation and the Government of Maharashtra, along with the World Bank, identified and approved this idea of having a community design built toilet. And therefore we have got the opportunity of constructing 320 blocks, something around 8,000 to 9,000 seats within the city of Bombay in the first phase.
The first phase, a lot of the politicians said no toilets in my area. Then people started coming to them because as the community started seeing the toilets, they said, why is there no toilet in my area? They would go to the commissioner and complain to him, why is there no toilet? So they would phone them and say, why is there no toilet? He said, the same man opposed it 2 years ago. We are happy to go and build it now. Then the re-engagement begins.
तर आता आम्ही स्वतः या नगरसेवकांनी आमच्या इकडे येऊन सांगितलं की माझ्या अमुक अमुक वॉर्डामध्ये टॉयलेट नाहीये. त्यांनी तुमच्यासाठी मागणी केली की एवढी वस्ती असून सुद्धा माझ्या वॉर्डामध्ये अजूनपर्यंत तरी त्या ठिकाणी टॉयलेट बनलेलं नाहीये, तर त्या ठिकाणी एक तुम्ही आम्हाला टॉयलेट बांधून द्या. 34 सीटची त्यांनी मागणी केली आहे.
पूरी पब्लिक का सहयोग आप लोगों के साथ में रहेगा, मेरा सहयोग रहेगा, फुल यहाँ पे बहुत जरूरत है, तो यहाँ पे कोई भी प्रॉब्लम यहाँ से आने वाला नहीं.
And as we went on in these processes, we began to understand all the challenges and began to refine the process. And one such area where a lot of refinement was done was in the area of children's toilets. They started with being open channels, but today gradually the city itself has accepted that we can have in the men's section a boys section and in the women's section a girls section, where the pans would be smaller, the spaces would be smaller, but they could be supervised by the men and the women, and the maintenance of these toilets could be clear. Our real achievement was that now children's toilets are part of this process. As we moved on, our focus started moving towards the maintenance. What we found is that the routine maintenance works very well as long as water and electricity are assured. The minute that stops, there's a challenge. We also found that most slum locations had no access to the main sewer system, which meant that most of the toilets had septic tanks. And the challenge was these toilets, although they were meant for a smaller number in terms of ratios, the absence of sanitation in that locality meant that 5 to 6 times more than the ratio used the toilets. So the tanks got filled up early, getting them to be cleaned out became a problem. Sometimes the gases erupted, and all these challenges had to be negotiated with the municipality and the community on what to do. Most of the time the city believed that its contribution to the capital cost was adequate, that they didn't have to pay for the capital maintenance over a long time. And these are still unresolved issues. This first phase demonstrated the potential of being scalable. And many other cities in India began to explore this.
What we did in Pune, it reflected in Bombay work also. Because of the Bombay, now the national government is clearly interested in developing as a national program.
Government of Karnataka sent the mayors and commissioners and other officials from 32 towns where they are taking up a sanitation program to look at the work in Pune and Mumbai and see how much they can incorporate into its elements into their work. The government of Andhra Pradesh has requested us, this alliance of ASCI, Yashada and us, to enter into a memorandum of understanding with them, again to see how far we can take these concepts of community participation in public sanitation to different cities in that state.
While this was going on, because we are part of Slum Dwellers International, which is a transnational organization of community federations at a country level, and sanitation today is a very important agenda within SDI, and many cities have begun to explore this process.
The land which was donated by Haji Mlangwa to the community, so that where they can put there a sanitation unit as a demonstration unit for us in the community.
It was the foundation stone was laid by the Honorable Minister who is in charge of housing and the Mayor, Kampala City Council and other politicians and the Commissioner in charge of human settlements from the Ministry of Works. So this was a ceremonial way of saying that this is where we are going to build the sanitation unit.
But our collective challenge really is that this is not enough. We have to deal with major challenges of space for toilets, because these toilets could serve 3 times or 4 times more. But there is still 70% of people who still don't have access. That means that there will have to be some readjustment of the locality. Maybe some people will have to move into ground plus 1 to housing stock to make space for toilets. We don't know. We have to explore this. The second thing is, most cities all over the world don't have sewage treatment. And those that do have sewage treatment traditionally only allowed it for its formal city. And creating access to the sewers for slums is very expensive in today's costs, and cities are still hesitant to go there. The third issue is, in most cities that we know, the municipality has to ask permission of the landowner. This means that while the landowner could not avoid his land being occupied by slum dwellers, resists the city providing sanitation for fear that it will mean that it doesn't work. In some slums, ironically, if the toilet comes in, the informal landowner increases the rentals. So these are all contradictions in exploring new options.
पूरा 30 सीट का काम चालू है यहाँ पर, तो ऑलरेडी खड्डा हो चुका था यहाँ पर, सोलिंग भी होने के पीरियड में थी, 10 फीट खड्डा खोद के रेडी हो गया था, लेकिन गांव में आपस का जो जगह का प्रॉब्लम आने की वजह से मेरा वो काम रुका दिया, फिर वो खड्डा वापस मेरे को मट्टी भरवा के बंद करना पड़ा, तो इसकी वजह से ये काम लेट हो रहा है। आज करीबन तीसरा खड्डा ये हो रहा है यहाँ पर, ये साइड के ऊपर।
But the biggest challenge really is going to be of how to manage the waste. Slum dwellers, community organizations can do something about building toilets that can stop open defecation and that can produce a means of separating the fecal matter from the settlement. But its disposal continues to remain a challenge. Today, whether it is in a toilet or it is in the open, this fecal matter is polluting all groundwater, it is polluting the locality, and it is a huge health hazard. In a water-scarce world, even the possibility of providing any water-based sewage treatment is no longer something that is going to be sustainable or viable. So then what is the alternative? What forms of treatment can the new technology options provide? As NGOs on the ground and as community leaders on the ground, there are very few projects that we can actually go and see that demonstrate that they are financially viable, that they are manageable by communities, and that they can be at scale.
लेकिन इसके लिए 20 लोग दिन में ये यूज करेंगे तो 6 महीने के बाद में उसको साफ करना पड़ता है। 6 महीने के बाद में वो ऊपर जो ढक्कन है वो निकालने का, उसमें जो फिल्टर है वो खाली साफ करने का, और जो पानी या समझो कुछ।
We are now looking at new possibilities of new partnerships and for explorations that will take us to the second stage of providing sustainable universal sanitation. What does this mean? It means that we need to focus not only on building toilets that serve everybody, but we also need to look at sustainable disposal and treatment of fecal matter from these toilets. And to do that, governments, civil society and communities will need to work together for such a common goal.